Gratitude day 11. This one was easy today. Grateful for friends who care in a kind of specific way. I saw an Instagram post a while ago, and I kind of get where the guy's coming from and what he's saying. But the post, he said something to the extent of like, men have to be at a certain social or economic status before it's okay for them to share their feelings publicly. I don't know if he said publicly, maybe he did. Quote unquote, okay for them to share their feelings, accepted. And I have a lot to say on that. I mean, I fundamentally kind of get what he's trying to get at. But man, I'm so lucky. And what's cool is I feel like from the outside looking in, the friends I have, you'd probably be like, those are the last dudes on earth who would ever tell a friend, brother, I love you, man. Getting off a call, love you, man. Rough exteriors, very different, walks of life. A lot of them combat experience, some of them just rough upbringings, others just, whatever life leading to where they're at now. But I count myself lucky. They're the first ones to say, hey man, love you. That's a cool thing, and it's shared among the group. It's not gratuitous. It's not superficial. It's meaningful. You don't find a lot of friends like that, or maybe we don't take the time to find and stay in those kind of circles. And I would say if you don't have a circle where it's not comfortable to do that, it's important to find one. Because I'll also tell you the flip side of this is like for, a group who I think cares more than any group that I've ever met, they're also the first ones to tell you when you messed up. And man, do you need that too. You need somebody to be there to be like, hey, I care about you a lot, but that was a dumb decision. You screwed up, and kind of check you on stuff. So I got a lot of those. Grateful for that today for sure. It's just a cool little deep thought gratitude today. Tomorrow we'll go something a little more on the surface, a little superficial. But happy Chinese New Year. Happy Lunar New Year, which is a fantastic day. Growing up, high school, I had really close friends, and their family would celebrate Chinese New Year. Best parties, and super cool experience. Grateful I got to. Great food, wonderful people, just really fun all around. I'm glad I got to experience that, growing up in a tiny little town of 1,100 people. So very cool to run into them. They also had a house that was like right across from the high school. So it was like kind of the meetup house. Cool little memory. But yeah, happy Chinese New Year. That got me thinking about some of the other advice I was looking through. And one of the pieces that stuck out to me was learning from an experience that is not your own. We've chatted about this before, but when I was thinking about the joke I made about being at Marshall's the other day, the arts and crafts store, and like how I could just follow the people who are in there around the entire time, like a real creepazoid. They just look so cool, and I don't. And arts and crafts, just the things people make, the do-it-yourselfers, the arts and crafts people, the artists. How are their brains working? I don't even get it. But why I thought of it was, and why I think it's important is, like we've talked about, having your own worldview. And when I look at people who view things differently or have totally different life outcomes than me, no doubt in my mind, I'm not naive enough to think that like we all have the same life. I know we don't, but we are kind of built and maybe programmed a little bit to have a lot of the same experiences, fall in love, fall out of love, emotional hurt, emotional, personal triumph, emotional joy, maybe unfortunately, various levels of physical harm. I think there just are a lot of experience that we are set up to share with other people. And of course, some people lead very, very and have very, very different experiences in their lives. I'm not naive to that. But what I do think is interesting is how I have to imagine just the statistics of it all. There are some times throughout the day we have very similar experiences to someone who is not us. And we all react to them maybe sometimes in similar ways, also in different ways. How we process our previous life choices before that guide us to completely different outcomes. And I think that's really meaningful because what it tells me is, one, just the opportunity for growth. Two, the learning that we can have from different. Three, as much as is going on in the world, I still only have my experience. And even in my experience, I have thousands. Well, okay, let's be honest. I probably have like 12. I have 12 thoughts throughout the day. But you have a lot of thoughts throughout the day and different feelings about these thoughts and, different perspectives of looking at things. One time, I think I don't know where I saw this, not on Instagram for once, but it was artist renditions of a cup, and, asked a bunch of people to draw a cup, and most people were drawing it from a side view, profile view, I guess. And, less amounts of people drew it. Very few drew it from a top-down view. It was a totally different view of the cup. I know it seems silly, but to me, that feels like something meaningful of the person who's got the top-down view. How's their brain looking at other things, not just this drawing of a cup or their imaginary picture of a cup in their mind and how they're putting it on paper. I think that's meaningful to talk to somebody who has a perspective, completely different from the majority. How did they get there? Why do they think that way? And this is tough because I think sometimes you can boil it down just to, you can demean the experience of another individual, I don't know, just by for the sole purpose of analysis. And so I think sometimes just to be there and be like, I just want to experience or get as close to experiencing what they're experiencing. And just, what does that feel like? What is the world like from somebody else? So I really like that advice, learn from an experience that is not their own, and doing so as often as you can. And I always find myself, I just get excited and I never shut the fuck up. I'm just excited to talk, excited to share. And I have to pull the e-brake in my brain to say to somebody, hey, what did you think about that? Tonight, Cassandra and I were having a conversation and she asked me a question. And I just blah, 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 blah. And I had to literally just kind of slam the emergency and I'm just telling myself, hey, what? And I said, well, what did you think? What are your thoughts on that? It's tough, especially even if you get excited, but, you learn so much from that. I can't say enough good about it. We could probably at some point go through some specific examples of where I think that is important and why I think that is important. But I think there's not enough time in the world for you to just be here with your own thoughts. Got to borrow and listen to other people's too. So I thought that was really interesting. And then wrapping up the day, good workout today. Stole a CrossFit.com workout. I think I'm going to do some stuff on Instagram with the CrossFit.com workouts. But that aside, workout was 3 rounds for time, 15 chest to bar pull-ups, 30 calorie row, and then 45 air squats. And we got the rowers getting a little attention, so I ended up doing it on the ski erg. Cassandra did it on the C2 bike. It was a fun workout. I like higher rep air squats and workouts. I think it's a underutilized movement. It's kind of just saved for the travel workouts, but it's really beautiful when paired with a long list of other movements. It just works well. So cool workout, about 10 minutes. And that was just it for today for the workout. Just a little warm up in, and then a lot of outside time because we had beautiful weather. So I was pretty lucky for that. And, thinking more about gratitude and some stuff like that. We had a friend of ours lost a dog today. Old guy, he's headed there. But it's never easy. It's so interesting to me when I think about, death and loss. This podcast just took a turn. Good, it's 10 minutes. So death and loss. it's interesting for me because, especially with dogs, there's just such consistent beasts. Any pet probably, and you probably don't notice all the consistency when they're around, or at some point you stop noticing it, like the same place they lay, the one tiny little thing they do the same every single morning when you wake up. And I can imagine and you remember like the really big events, like the first time we took them out on the paddle board, or the time we hiked this 14er with them. And those are important events. They're the events that live in the Instagram and they have pictures, but it's all those little consistent events, the hundreds of thousands of the same thing over and over again. Maybe it's like the silly way, the dog greets you, or our new puppy, she's got this new behavior where, like, if she kind of wants your attention, you're standing with your legs together, she'll just slam her head in the back of your legs and try and push through just to get attention. And I'm like, she'll do this forever now. And it'll be annoying to us, and she'll be consistent. And then someday it will no longer be there, and you'll just wish that it was still happening. But you don't, it's like you don't really think about it while it's going on, how important that consistency makes that action. And this just doesn't extend to pets. It was just pets that was on the top of my mind. This extends to other things too. And not just around the concept of death. I just think death brings it in front of you in such a stark and drastic way. It's such a reminder of, and this is so corny, I'm going way off the rails. I think this is a quote from, I hate that I'm saying this, The Last Samurai. And I think, what's the guy's name? Ben. Oh man. He's the samurai, the head samurai shogun, maybe. And he basically has this quote about life in every breath. Anyway, I just think it's a really interesting reminder, taking in a big deep breath and taking some time to notice all those tiny little ultra consistent things that we often just take for granted, and because they happen a ton and they just kind of fade into the background like white noise. Taking that breath and taking in all of the little things just in a moment. Maybe not you're not doing this all day, but this is that corny stop and smell the roses, where you've embraced both, the imperfection and, the perfection of the thing. And that's what that got me really thinking about. It's sad. I'm sad for my friends who lost their dog. Sad to see him go. He's the reason we got our first dog here out in Colorado, and I got to end up having a dog, with Cassandra, which I never thought was going to be the case. So that's sad, but in a way that legacy of his lives on. And like I said, death is always it's not the only reminder, but it's a powerful reminder of taking a second and appreciating the little things, appreciating the small, consistent moments that you experience in your daily life, whether it's with a pet, a loved one, maybe just you on your own, enjoying some part of your day, taking a moment to appreciate those consistent moments that like usually just fade into the background in the shadow of the glitz and glam of the huge life events. So that got me thinking today big time. Interesting one. Went a little over time. That's okay. More tomorrow.